chances right now.
Back, watching his brother, who is fighting unbelievably right now. He sees it.
Over the years, we've experienced some truly spectacular battles in the octagon, filled with twists and turns that would bring us to the edge of our seats. These are fights in which an elite fighter puts on a flawless striking performance that leaves us wondering if we've ever seen anything quite like it. In this video, I'll break down the most ruthlessly dominant striking performances in UFC history. We'll relive fights where all-time great fighters delivered masterclasses over world champions and dangerous contenders. By the final bell, these bouts cease to be competitions. Just one fighter showcasing their striking superiority with shocking ease. Selecting just one entry for Demetrious Johnson on this list proved nearly impossible, thanks to the countless overwhelming performances Might Mouse recorded across his long title reign. In the end, I had to go with his clinical domination of elite grappler Wilson Reis. Reis earned his shot on the back of 3 straight submission wins over ranked threats like Horiguchi. The BJJ black belt believed he held the definitive edge if he grounded the champion. But the legendary champion employed perfect footwork and distance control to nullify any concept of that advantage. Johnson refused to engage in the type of reckless firefight that could allow openings for Reis to work his grappling or scramble in transitions. Instead, he picked apart the challenger for 3 rounds en route to a record 14 takedowns scored compared to 0 for Reis before securing an armbar for good measure. It was problem-solving, creativity, and off-the-charts fight IQ distilled into 15 minutes of martial arts mastery. I don't believe any list about ruthlessly dominant performances is complete without mentioning Jon Jones' title-winning effort against legendary champion Shogun Rua back at UFC 128. A 23-year-old Jones took the bout on just 6 weeks' notice, but against the feared striker and grappler, Bones hardly missed a step. Utilizing a staggering 11-inch reach advantage against Shogun, Jones stayed at long range and confused Rua with unpredictable attacks like jumping switch kicks or innovative trips and takedown entries. He smashed Shogun with elbows whenever the action hit the mat. By the time Jones mercifully ended Rua's suffering with a 3rd-round KO, the former Prime Middleweight Grand Prix winner had absorbed a UFC record 113 significant strikes without landing any truly telling blows himself. It was as alarming as it was spectacular. The birth of an all-time talent and a flawless passing of the torch. When brash knockout artist Paulo Costa planned to perfection. Rather than risk constant dangerous exchanges with the power-punching Costa, Adesanya kept his opponent off balance with stinging shots from a distance before sneaking out of harm's way, and ducked for the countering Nigerian. By the end of an astonishing performance that broke Costa's spirit along with UFC records, Adesanya had landed nearly 5 times as many strikes en route to a crucial title defense over one of the division's hardest hitters. Dominic Cruz carved out a legacy with his unprecedented take on frenetic footwork-driven strike challengers to his bantamweight crown across years of dominance. Bout at UFC 207. What unfolded instead was 25 minutes of no love fighting the perfect fight against MMA's premier evasive specialist. Repeatedly finding the champion's chin with precise power shots whenever he stepped into range. According to UFC stats, he landed over 40% of his strikes overall and limited the typically elusive Cruz to only 117 total strikes landed, allowing almost no offense the entire time. A shocking first in his long career loss. Speaking of shocking title fight upsets, Holly Holm's flawless knockout win over Ronda Rousey at UFC 193 memorably changed the course of WMMA history forever. Biggest stars. When she met Holm, a quick armbar submission seemed inevitable, but the world-class kickboxer Holm had other plans. By sticking and moving instead of engaging the judoka in close quarters, Holm froze and confused Rousey, who grew increasingly desperate to land her signature throws and hooks as the fight wore on. A head kick in the second brought a conclusive end to the unexpectedly one-sided fight. In just 10 minutes, Holm solved an opponent whom the rest of women's MMA had no answers for, rewriting the history books in easy fashion with the perfect game plan executed flawlessly. After winning 2 titles in 2 divisions by dethroning lightweight king Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205, Conor McGregor turned in the apex of his legendary career to date, a masterful display of MMA striking arts against a proven, durable veteran. Alvarez promised he would pressure McGregor and draw him into an all-out brawl. But by keeping the powerful Alvarez at the end of laser-accurate counters, McGregor declined the invitation, instead choosing to showcase supreme shot selection that repeatedly found its mark on the Philadelphia fighter. By the end of round 2 and over 150 strikes absorbed, a battered Alvarez waved off the bout in person for the first time in his career after being dropped 3 times, conceding the titles to McGregor with his arms behind his back, bravado fully justified. The single greatest individual performance the Octagon has ever witnessed remains Anderson Silva's Matrix-like dismantling of former 205-pound champ Forrest Griffin back at UFC 101. The middleweight Silva moved up in weight to test his skills, but hardly had to break a sweat against the naturally larger fighter. What unfolded was nothing short of extraordinary. Silva slipped Griffin's every attack with contemptuous ease, never allowing his opponent within striking range. And whenever Griffin charged desperately forwards, he ran headfirst into a counter-strike. In just 3.5 minutes, Silva scored 3 knockdowns with only 13 punches against a shell-shocked Griffin without absorbing a single strike himself before landing a retreating punch that dropped Griffin face-first to the canvas, forcing him to quit on the stool. Griffin was far from an average fighter, but Silva made the elite talent look utterly lost and outclassed for every second. It was martial arts mastery so flawless it seemed choreographed, distilled into a legendary highlight that will live on forever as the greatest individual performance ever. And that's my list of the 7 most ruthlessly dominant striking performances in UFC history. If you enjoyed this compilation, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more MMA content like this. This is your host signing off. See you next time.